Are here ready to race. Dario Franchitti has a 1-point lead in the championship, and in qualifying, it's 1 point that is on the line. Qualifying for the Target Grand Prix of Chicago at the brand new and beautiful Chicago Speedway. Chip Ganassi's dream is indeed coming true today. We're ready to qualify for the pole, and this is just the start of our coverage of this race this weekend. Tomorrow morning we'll have coverage on Kart Today, and then the race itself on ABC Sports. What we're talking here is a brand new racetrack. Until Thursday, no one had ever raced on it. Computer models can only do so much to tell you what they can expect. It's not until you get to the track that you really find out what's going on. They're finding out very quickly. Here's Gary Gerould.
Paul, I think that this racetrack has proved to be a bit more of a challenge than many teams might have anticipated. You hear engines being warmed in the background. What you have here basically in this mile is like a paperclip shape. Real long straightaways, extremely tight turns, more so than any mile these drivers are used to competing upon. Now that being said, keep in mind, they're having to shift down as they come to turns 1 and 3. They're heavy on the brakes. The speeds fall off about 65 miles an hour in the corners, then back up. Also, this is only the third time in a short oval this year that they've had the new aero package for the short track for 1999. They don't have the downforce they've been used to in the past. It's a very big challenge, and it's a slower racetrack than many thought it might be.
And Gary, much to the chagrin of a lot of the drivers and a lot of the engineers, this track is really finicky about driving style and car setup. Now, traditionally, the drivers would dive down deep into the corners, get the downshifting done, and square off the corner. But drivers like Cristiano Damata, Max Pappas are finding by braking a little bit earlier, carrying a little bit more speed into the entry, and being very careful with the steering wheel, their mid-cornering speeds are going way up, and their overall lap times are going down. A lot of teams are scratching their heads trying to find that magical setup. Now, we all celebrate the birth of Jennifer and Jan Beekes' baby this week. He was unable to make it to Chicago. Filling in for him is Rick DeBrule. Rick?
Well, we want to talk about the fact that the drivers have to get used to this track, but the track also has to get used to the drivers. Let me explain. You look at this asphalt, you see it as black. The drivers consider it green. That's because what it's missing. See this big black stripe? Well, that's what was laid. Rubber that was laid as one of the cars drove out of pit lane. Basically, what they've been doing for the last 3 days is laying the rubber from the tires onto the track. It sort of seasons it, gives it a little more grip. On Thursday, there was nothing. Friday, a little more. Today, a little more. Right now, there's only one real fast line around this racetrack. During qualifying, it's going to be a matter of nailing that. During the race, it's going to be an even bigger battle to make sure that you don't get off that too much.
Well, already we've had some interesting occurrences today. This morning in the practice, Al Unser Jr. in the Lola, off a turn 2, a heavy hit with the wall, the first champ car into the wall. Now, the kart safety team went out, and this was the rescue. Now, seeing this, I find it hard to believe, and I think you will too when I tell you that it was only moments later that Al Unser Jr. was in his car and ready to go. Now we are ready to see Al Unser Jr. take the green flag on a qualifying attempt here. Dennis Vitolo has already qualified into the field at a 24.6. And Al Unser Jr. out. This is the second Lola in the Penske stable. And Penske for this race has only one entry, and it is Al Unser Jr.
And an interesting story as we watch Al Unser Jr. He's on Goodyear tires like Gilles de Ferran. Both Firestone and Goodyear were way too conservative in their estimates as far as how much grip this track would have. The drivers are getting 75, 100-plus miles out of these tires with no appreciable wear. They can put on a new set of tires, and really the lap times don't go down. Now, Wally Dallenbach has given them an extra warm-up lap, which means they can take a total of 5 if they so desire. And I think under this overcast, cool conditions, all these drivers will take 5, trying to get heat into these very hard tires in preparation for 2 quick laps.
As Al Unser Jr. continues his warm-up, Parker, we're going to look at that incident again. And the angle that he got into the wall was pretty dangerous, really.
You can see as he comes into view, he's already backwards. He hits at a very steep angle. You can see to the front of the car, left front slaps. Here's poor Patrick Carpentier, once again, right in the middle of all the action, avoiding the pieces and parts. And Paul, look at the wheel tether here and how the tire gets underneath the car. That's the first time we've seen that this year.
Al Unser Jr., of course, after the rescue, out immediately into the backup car. This is the backup car as he warms up for his qualifying run here. Next time by, it will be the green flag. Jens Wenzel, the starter, gives him the indication that he will go green on the next time by. The track here, well, they've been working on it right up into the last minute. In fact, they still are working on it today, but it is a gorgeous facility. Every seat in the house can see every inch of this track that has been described by many as looking like a paperclip. Onto the front straightaway. Green flag will come out now for Al Unser Jr. He starts his qualifying run. 25 flat was last time around on the warm-up for Al.
Watch how close his left side tires get to the white lines down in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The drivers have been treading right on top of it, trying to get the greatest radius out of the corners. The problem that they face if they cross over that white line is that if they get those inside wheels to lose grip right in the middle of the corner, it can put them backwards into the wall. So the drivers have to be very, very careful with how close or how much they run those tires over. We can see there Al's a good few feet off the inside down through 1 and 2.
We expect the second lap in almost all cases to be the faster one. Al's first was in at 24.6, 150.4 miles an hour, coming to the conclusion of the second and final lap. And 24.5, so not a large increase, and it is enough, though, to put him on the provisional pole, but of course only he and Dennis Vitolo have been out on the racetrack. So Al Unser Jr., after a very difficult day and a smack into the wall, makes it into the field for the very first run on the Chicago Speedway. We'll be back with more qualifying. Well, in the old days, Soldier Field on the lakeshore in Chicago used to be where Chicagoans got their racing. Known now for its football. And next weekend, college football is in a back-to-school blitz as one of the best opening weekends ever kicks off on ABC and ESPN, including the Arizona Wildcats as they take on the Nittany Lions of Penn State. Now, providing some of our shots from above is the Goodyear Blimp Stars and Stripes. If you want to learn more about the Goodyear Blimp, check it out at www.goodyear.com. Now, take a look at this car. This is Robbie Gordon. But if you look down on the nose, you'll see the Eagle of Dan Gurney. As predicted, Gordon has made the change over to the Eagle chassis, still Toyota power, and he has just begun the first of his qualifying laps.
On board with Robbie coming down the back straightaway into turn 3. From 195 down to 125 miles an hour through the mid-corner. You can hear him go down a couple of gears. Up to 6th gear. Left foot braking hard here.
23.6 first lap around, good enough for third quick.
And watch the distance between his left front wheel and the paint stripe. This distance is critical. If they get too far down on it, the car will lose grip suddenly, but they want to get as close as possible. Look at that left front wheel and its proximity. Good job by Robbie Gordon there.
Second of his 2 laps, checkered flag comes out for Robbie Gordon. He'll stay at third quick provisionally.
23.69.
And
currently your P3.
And that's the time report out to Robbie Gordon. But a big change for him this weekend with this car. We'll look at some of the others that have qualified. Shigeaki Hattori, Bettenhausen Racing was back after a several event absence. And Sheggy qualified with a 24.324. Raul Boesel in the Gurney Eagle now replaces Walter Salles. So Boesel in for Salles and will perhaps go to the end of the season in this car. Boesel was at 23.787, currently good enough for fourth. Michel Jourdain Jr. continues on, single effort this weekend. There's his 2 laps. And currently that sets Michel Jourdain Jr. as second quick. And then Tony Kanaan came out. Kanaan, the winner of the US 500, driving for Jerry Forsyth in the McDonald's car at 23.422 miles an hour. And that sets him on the provisional pole. Now this is Jan Magnussen as he warms up for his qualifying run. And Magnussen is in one of those 97, 98, 99 combo Reynards. But Al Unser Jr., one of the first out in qualifying, and he is currently with Gary Gerould.
Be a relief for you, Al Unser Jr., to have a car now qualified. But the question, of course, goes back to this morning and how you're feeling, because that was a very frightening-looking hit to us.
Well, my neck's a little bit sore, my shoulder's a little bit sore, but all in all, I'm okay. I mean, everything did their job as far as the head protection around the cars and so on. So, you know, it was just one of those things. We're out there, we're trying, we helped the car a little bit prior to that run, and then I made my quickest lap, and I went for that little bit more, and it just wasn't there.
In the backup car that you've now qualified, had you had time to get a feel for it on the track this weekend?
Yeah, we ran it Thursday morning early, and then, you know, I came straight from the med center and got in the car and finished up the practice session this morning, and you know, it didn't have our qualifying engine in it or anything like that, and so, you know, we have suffered a little bit with it, but you know, we're in the show, and so as long as we make the show, we got a shot at doing good. So
Magnussen has just started his qualifying run. Now, that white line in the turns is the only thing that delineates the competition surface from the rest of the track. Magnussen's first lap at 154 miles an hour, 23.9, good enough for fifth quick. They say you can get two wheels over that line, but if you get the right side down on that line, they are not going to count that lap.
And I'm really surprised, Paul, because on a couple of these laps, he's gone way below that white line, and the car has really gotten away from him. He's been able to pick it back up, but I think that that's a hindrance, trying to cross it over by more than a few inches. The other thing that we noticed with his onboard, he's only making one downshift and one upshift going into and out of the corners. We've seen that with the Cosworth motors all year long.
So with the second lap, Magnussen takes a substantial jump up to second quick at 23.5 behind Tony Kanaan's 23.4. Hawthorne Racecourse, adjoins Chicago Speedway. You want to hear some very expensive noises? Richie Hearn on his qualification attempt had the Toyota engine let go, and it oiled the track down big time, so Richie Hearn has his problems. Garcia Jr. had some too. He backed his new Lola into the wall and did some pretty severe damage to the back end of the car. But now Michael Andretti is qualifying on the Chicago Speedway. That's the first of his 2 laps. Michael Andretti, currently 4th, driving for 2nd. Loses some time down the backstretch. Off of 4. And down the front stretch, Michael Andretti completes his qualification run. The best lap, the first, and that's good enough for 4th quick. Now, after that engine problem, Rick DeBrule caught up with Richie Hearn.
Well, Richie Hearn, you got to be very disappointed. For a moment there, you were doing pretty well on the track, and then suddenly something went. What happened?
Yeah, actually, we were running real good. We, you know, even my first lap before the green flag, I had done the fastest lap I'd done all weekend. So I was taking it easy, trying to save my tires, and you know, unfortunately, we had a mechanical problem there coming out of turn 4 that didn't let me continue.
Any warning at all? The motor just blew?
Yeah, well, no warning really. I mean, I was going for it and just let go. Didn't want to go 2 more laps, unfortunately. But it could have been worse. You know, if it would have blown going into the corner, it probably would have been bad.
Let's talk about the track real briefly. What's it like now that you're having to qualify on it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a tough track, and I mean, we're trying to keep up with it. Really, we're trying to keep up. The track's changing every time, and you know, we're up and down each session. Some guys are doing real good, some guys are struggling, and we're kind of right in the middle.
Now you got to struggle just to get the next engine in.
Yeah, well, we'll be all right. We'll be all right.
Well, Richie Hearn's 1 lap, good enough for 9th quick. Gilles de Ferran driving for Walker, next year for Penske. And de Ferran's 2 laps, his fastest, put him in 5th place. And then out came P.J. Jones, substituting for Adrian Fernandez. And P.J. was able to take the provisional pole. Now here is Paul Tracy, who has had more than his share of engine problems.
This morning, in his primary car, the engine let go. He climbed into the backup car and immediately had another engine problem. It's the worst possible scenario getting ready for qualifying in the afternoon.
Down trackside, Rick DeBrule.
Well, indeed, talked to Tracy just before he went out. He was talking about the fact that he blew 2 motors this morning. As a result, he really wasn't able to get a good setup on the car, just wasn't able to get track time. As a result, they have put Frankiti's setup on his car, and it's one of those bonsai runs to see what you can do.
Well, Paul Tracy takes the green flag, begins his qualification run here.
Notice the angle of the front wings. You can hear the tires skid there, Paul. The aero program at Team Green has found that if they lower those wings and straighten out that front wing angle versus the other Renards, it's more efficient in their overall aerodynamic package. So we watch other Renards run, take a look at the front nose wings and how different that angle is.
Paul Tracy's first lap, good enough for 4th quick with a 23.59.
And you can hear from mid-corner out towards the exit, the tires squealing.
Tracy goes for the checkered flag. Interestingly enough, his first lap is quickest.
When you hear a race tire squeal, that is not good. This track is very green. There's a very low adhesion level. That's why the tires have lasted so long. It's very difficult for the drivers and engineers to get a handle on how to set these cars up and how to drive them properly to get the most out of the lap times.
Now, P.J. Jones has the provisional pole with a 23.35. He's with Gary Gerould.
PJ, you've had an opportunity now to get a little more track time and familiar with the Reynard chassis. It looks like it's progressing. How satisfied are you?
That's Pedro Jones, not PJ anymore. Since I'm taking over Adrian's ride, the Mexican Tecate, Quaker State. First of all, I just want to say hi to Adrian. You know, hope he gets back soon, but not too soon.
Now, tell me how happy you are with the car.
The car's not bad. I mean, it's nice to run your fastest lap in your qualifying lap. We're still a little behind. You know, we struggled here yesterday, and we struggled this morning a little bit, and we didn't think we'd run this quick. And so, again, it's nice to run your fastest lap in qualifying.
Has this track caught teams by surprise with the tight corners?
Well, not so much that. I think it's just the lack of running here, not testing. You know, some teams, it might take a little longer to get going than others, and some people just hit it. And, you know, at first off, the first day we were here Thursday, we were okay, and then we progressively got worse.
Thanks, Pedro.
Thanks.
And PJ still sits on the provisional pole. From Formula One, Frank Williams on the right as he talks with Dan Gurney. Talking about old times or looking to a future. ESPN's coverage of Winston Cup, the Pepsi 400. Jeff Gordon, the defending champion. Last year's victory at Michigan gave Gordon the last in a string of 4 consecutive victories last summer. Will that be the case in the coverage of Winston Cup? For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com. Well, at Chicago's Speedway, Scott Pruitt took it out onto the course, driving for Alan Frank Arciero and Cal Wells, and he was able to take the provisional pole. And then Greg Moore just snatched that provisional away with a 23.15, 160.017 miles an hour. So out on the course, here is Montoya. This is his perhaps chance to grab that point that will put him in a tie with Dario Franchitti. Michael Andretti in his run completed. We go to Gary Gerould.
Michael Andretti, I gather that this has been a very frustrating weekend thus far. Is there something specifically that's made it so difficult for you to find the setup?
Well, my style just doesn't suit this place for an ultimate quick lap, and really suits Roberto, and I hope he gets the pole for us, but I'm hoping in the race it won't matter as much. You know, you have to be very smooth here, and my style's not smooth.
You're just overly aggressive? Is this one of those cases where maybe you kind of slow down to go fast type of deals?
Absolutely, you know, and I just can't get myself to do it. But, you know, hopefully it won't matter in the race, because I think it'll be a lot different in the race.
Thank you.
Juan Montoya's first lap is looking strong, currently good enough for third, but not enough to take the pole in its single point. Comes across the line, and no, in fact, he's able to do it at the end of the lap. And Montoya takes the pole with a 23.104. Can he improve on the second lap?
Driving very smoothly. He's not even using up all the exit out to the walls. We saw Greg Moore had a dramatic moment coming off of turn 2 right there during his lap in order to that was actually coming off of for Montoya, but turn number 2 for Moore.
23-101. Greg Moore with the 23-15. Good job today.
So Montoya with a second lap ups it just a bit. That gives him the provisional pole, but still a good many big names yet to come. We go to Gary.
A lot of talk, Greg Moore, about driving style and how important it is, but you're maintaining that if you've got a good balance in the mid-corner, that's going to be the key here?
Yeah, that's the key. I mean, in the race, I think it's going to be a totally different thing than it is for qualifying, but, you know, it's important to get out there and get a good run, you know, get a good first lap in there. I got a good first lap, so I tried a little harder on my second lap and had a big bobble on the exit of turn 2 there, but, you know, I think if your car's working good in the turns, you're going to have a good time here. But in the race, you know, I think it's more important to be able to dive into the turn and be able to pass people, and we're working real hard on that.
When you have a big moment like we just saw there with that bobble, how does that grab your attention?
It gets the heart rate up a little bit more. You know, I got out of the car and the guys were all feeling my heart to see how fast it was going. And, you know, I guess that's you know, qualifying. You're not going to do that every lap in the race, but you know, in qualifying, you got to stick it out and try and do a little bit more than you can.
Thanks.
All right.
Greg Moore was on the pole for a very short time, so Montoya is the provisional pole sitter. As we show you the view of the Chicago River over in downtown Chicago. We'll be back with more qualifying right after this. Back in qualifying for the Kart FedEx Championship Series, Chicago Motor Speedway, Mauricio Guzman qualified 2 laps that put him at the time 3rd quick, and then in a study of desire and courage, Patrick Carpentier came out with a 22.88, fastest lap turn this weekend, and that put this fellow who just 2 weeks ago was suffering badly from his incident with Guzman at Detroit, bent him over in the car and still is causing him some terrible pain. So that's the action to this point. Let's go down to Rick DeBrule, who is standing by with the fastest guy of the practice, Max Papis.
Well, the most interested observer out here this weekend, Max Papis, the fastest guy up until now. What's it like sitting here watching these guys try to knock it off and then hope you can go out and do faster?
I thought, you know, it's pretty good. I think that they're doing a good effort. You know, we have a good car, especially for Sunday, and that's what it counts, you know, but I tell you, the Miller guys have done a very, very good job up to now.
Time to get that pole and get that win, huh?
I haven't got a pole yet, a real one, so we are here working for that.
Here he goes.
Mark Blundell returns to his previous livery. Remember, for several races, they had changed the paint scheme on this car, changed back as intended to the more familiar Motorola colors. Last warm-up came at a 23 flat. That's a pretty good warm-up.
That warm-up lap is better than Mark's quickest time so far this weekend.
And Blundell takes the pole with a 22.81 to Carpentier's 22.88. Second lap, running quicker yet. Speed falls off going into 3. Well, he couldn't best it on his second lap, but the first lap of 22.813, 162.3 miles an hour, is good enough to put Blundell on the pole. Now, one fellow who is suffering by not being on the pole, he'd hope to pick up that single point and go head-to-head with Dario Franchitti into this race is Juan Montoya. Gary?
Juan, your first time along with all these other drivers at this facility, and I'm wondering how quickly you've adapted, and have you been able to find something for qualifying that made it better than earlier?
Well, you know, the car has been getting better and better every run, but we're still a bit far off. You know, we need to do a lot of work.
And now you start to run out of time to do that work. Is that a problem?
No, you know, Mid-Ohio was the same problem, so we're okay.
Oh, yeah. Was he ever? From 8th to winning it in a runaway. Thank you.
Brian Herta now begins his warm-up. You look at the view high over the Chicago Motor Speedway.
And keep in mind, Paul, when you come to a brand new facility, normally at least you get a chance to do some testing, except for the overseas races and the street courses. But an oval here in the States, For the drivers, they have to find some sort of perspective through the corner because there really are no reference points. As he comes down into this corner, he looks and all he can see is a solid white line. There's hardly any way to distinguish the corner exit as they come off. And so he tries to find some point, a billboard, a mark on the wall, something on the racetrack so that he can either place the car next to it, just behind it, just in front of it. But for a driver, it's very, very tough. And keep in mind, these corners, even though there's some banking here of 8 degrees, they're twice as tight as Homestead, for example, but they've got hardly any reference points like most of these facilities do.
Looking down from the Honda Helicam, Bryan Herta continues his warm-up last lap at 23.5.
And the crucial thing to watch is how close those inside wheels are to the white line. Now, those inside wheels are unweighted just a little bit, so they can sneak down maybe an inch or two on top of it. But if they get too far at all, it can upset the car, throw it off balance, and put the car into the wall.
On his qualification run now, remember, in the Kart FedEx Championship Series on an oval, they qualify in inverse order of speed, so theoretically, each car coming up should be faster than the previous. Right now, Herta on a run for the pole. Can he knock Blundell off that pole position? No, first lap not good enough, only third quick.
And keep in mind how difficult it is for the drivers, the engineers, and the teams. They just came from the permanent road course of Mid-Ohio. Before that, they were in Detroit on a street course. Before that, the Super Speedway in Michigan. It takes a real juggling act to try to find out the best balance, the best driving style, shifting from week to week to week on all these varied courses.
With the pylon timing system, again, third quick is what Bryan Herta can manage. It gives you time positions at different points on the racetrack, and it gives you a very good idea of how easy it is to get out of the bracket. I mean, you can come off one corner in first, end up in fourth, going into the next one. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Patrick Carpentier back on the scene after missing the last event at Mid-Ohio. This is, I would think, be a huge confidence boost to be able to come out and be so competitive.
Yeah, it is. You know, to miss a race, I stayed home and looked at it and was thinking quite a bit more. And I approached this weekend a bit differently. But the team came up with a great car. It's been good all weekend. And it's, as you said, a great confidence boost. And I think that if we have no pain tomorrow during the race, it should be a good race.
You mentioned pain. We'll go back and revisit that accident at Belle Isle that was so very, very frightening. How are you physically, and what's being done to make you feel better each day?
Yeah, actually pretty good. I've been stretching a lot, and it's a good thing it helped me during the crash. But we have a guy that's kind of a physiotherapist on the team, and he helps me after every session, gives me a lot of treatment. He's going to give me another one tonight, and every day has been improving, so I'm looking forward to the race. Plus, the racetrack here is so smooth that it's good help for me.
Nice to have you back.
Thank you.
Carpentier qualifies. Blundell still the pole sitter. And Luis Garcia Jr., who backed it in the wall earlier, has been released from the medical center. He's just fine, and they should have a car in the trailer for him at Hogan Racing. We'll be back. Back at the Chicago Motor Speedway, this is Roberto Moreno substituting for Christian Fittipaldi, which we expect to see pretty close to the end of the year. Ready to start his qualifying round in one lap. Warmed up that lap at a 24.1. The pole currently is Mark Blundell with a 22.81.
We've talked about styles during the show. Roberto's very smooth. He's very gentle with the brakes. He can carry a lot of speed into the entry without scrubbing a lot of speed in the mid-corner, pick up the throttle, and bring the car off just as gently as possible. Now contrast that to his teammate, Michael Andretti, who goes in really hard, tries to rotate the car on the entry, and the problem is it just scrubs off too much speed because the corners here are so tight, it just doesn't fit that particular driving style. Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, I think they've had a tough time adapting to this very, very tightly turned circuit.
Back in loose in two corners for Roberto Moreno. First lap, while it looked good at starting, I think that wiggle cost him. He drops down to fourth quick. Second lap underway. Brings the left side way over the line. That's legal. You touch it with the right side, the lap won't count. And Roberto Moreno remains at fourth quick with a 22.97, 161.22 miles an hour. Roberto Moreno. Now, Parker, we're going to take you back into the run because at one point it looked like the back end really came unglued.
Same thing we saw from Greg Moore. Their cars appear to be just a little more stiffly sprung, dampened, and normally that bump isn't a problem for the competitors, but with these low downforce speedway wings, it's very difficult for the drivers to find exactly where that fine edge is, and if they overstep it just a little bit, the car steps out on them.
So Mark Blundell still has the pole with a 22.813. Gary?
Well, you're talking about that wiggle coming out of 4. Mark Blundell, you had one of those as well?
Yeah, I had a nice wiggle. Fortunately, I made it, so it was okay, but it could have developed into a wobble, which would have been a real big problem.
Now, how confident are you that this may stand for the pole or a front row starting position tomorrow?
I don't know. I mean, you know, we've had a good setup all weekend. The engine's been performing well with the tires with Firestone Mercedes-Benz, but there's a couple of quick guys out there who have been a little bit quicker more consistently. I would really like to get on the pole. I mean, it would be fantastic for me, Motorola, and the whole team, but let's see.
We were talking with Patrick Carpentier about his neck and the ailment. You, of course, missed many more races. How are you coming along with the neck and as you continue to convalesce, so to speak?
I'm getting there, slowly but surely. I honestly thought this would be an easier weekend because it's just like a constant G and I could put my head up against the headrest, but this track in particular requires some heavy braking at each end of the straights there into the turns, and that's where the G-load's coming in, so it's still going to be a tough weekend at the office.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Mark Blundell, of course, with Mercedes-Benz power. On the track now is a Toyota, though, and that is Cristiano D'Amata. And he has been very quick with this engine and seems to be satisfied with it.
He's been running in the top 5 in all the practice sessions. I really think, Paul, that this is a weekend where Toyota has a chance legitimately for their first podium finish. Cristiano D'Amata said earlier this weekend that he didn't think this track was very challenging. I think it's turning out to be much more challenging for drivers, teams, and engineers than anyone had anticipated.
They've described this track as like a paperclip. Long, long straightaways and very tight turns. We call them 1, 2, 3, and 4, but really a constant radius at both ends of the track.
Mark Blundell referenced the braking. They're going from just over 195 miles an hour down to 125 miles an hour in just under 100 feet. So a lot of G loading under braking. They're only pulling about 3 Gs through the corner, which is low for an oval, even for a road course, but it just gives you an idea of, even with the banking here, how slick this new pavement is. And that's why every once in a while we can hear these race tires squealing, just like an automobile or a production automobile tire would. Very, very unusual for a race tire to do that.
First lap at 23 flat, 160 miles an hour. Picks it up on the second lap. And in fact, is able only to accomplish the 5th position, which is a bit of a surprise for me. We expected a little bit more out of Cristiano D'Amata. So D'Amata is in the field. Coming up, some key players: Helio Castroneves, Dario Franchitti, Jimmy Vasser, and Max Pappas. Paul Page with Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerould, and Rick DeBrule at the Chicago Motor Speedway, a brand new track. Every time somebody sets a record here, it is a brand new record. Currently, the track record is held by the provisional pole sitter, Mark Blundell, with a 22.813, and this is Helio Castroneves warming up now on the track. Brian Herta qualified 3rd quick, Gary Gerould.
Brian, how important will it be to be in the 1st or 2nd row for this 225 miles tomorrow?
Well, it'd be nice, but Gary, I don't think it's that important here. This is a pretty wide place, and you know, I'll be happy. I think if you qualify in the top 6 or 8 up here, and just, you know, that's a good place to start at this track, and you can work from there.
A lot of teams have had a hard time kind of finding a comfort zone at a new racetrack. Has it been difficult for you this weekend?
Well, it's been really pretty good. We've had a good setup, a good car this weekend, and it's particularly important because we just really struggled on the ovals this year horrendously, and my engineer Ray Lito really went back and looked through all the notes and you know, kind of picked out some things that were good about our cars. We kind of got rid of some of the stuff that was bad about them, hopefully, and it worked out. So, you know, I got to thank Ray and all the guys on my team for giving me a good car this weekend.
Wish you well tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Brian Herta sits on a provisional 3rd quick. Here's the way they are right now with some pretty key players yet to come. Mark Blundell with a provisional pole at 162.381 miles an hour. And Patrick Carpentier would start on the outside of the front row. But here comes Helio Castroneves.
This Lola chassis in this sort of environment where the drag over downforce is very well suited to get the most out of the car. The straightaways aren't quite long enough to worry about overall top speeds, but it produces a lot of downforce through the corners. He's been very quick all weekend long, and everyone thought he was, right from the get-go, one of the pole contenders for the race coming up tomorrow.
You know, Helio Castroneves has been very fast on some of the ovals, especially the short ones. At the pole at Milwaukee, running for second quick right now. And cannot eclipse Mark Blundell. Helio Castroneves now pushes Patrick Carpentier off of the front row, and we'll start on the outside of the front row alongside Mark Blundell, but there's still some guys that have a few things to say about that. A great deal was expected out of Roberto Moreno. He qualified 5th quick. I think they would have liked to do better at Newman Haas. Here's Gary.
Roberto, right now I believe it's 5th quick. Is that a disappointment, or are you satisfied with that?
I'm very satisfied. We had a very good car throughout the weekend. The Big K Mart car has been good. We have an extremely good balance in the car. We have a good race car, which is the most important thing. I think I've got to be very, very happy. The good thing here is we came here, nobody tested in this place. So my handicap of not testing has gone away in this place, at least as far as the circuit is concerned. But I still have a handicap of not knowing enough, like the other guys do. But the team has helped me a lot to do that.
Well, we look forward to seeing how it goes for you tomorrow, and you'll be able to go from that 3rd row. Thank you.
Thank you.
And once again, Roberto Moreno as the super sub out-qualifies his teammate. 5th quick at the moment, while Michael Andretti, his teammate, is currently 15th. So still warming up is Dario Franchitti. Had a disappointing run at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course a week ago.
This track should suit Dario's driving style perfectly. He's so smooth, so good on the brakes, so gentle with the steering on corner entry.
23.8 his last warm-up lap. That's his 3rd. Dario Franchitti, both the tire companies came here with a fairly hard compound as Franchitti starts his qualifying attempt. And I think they over-guessed it.
Well, they really did. Everyone I've talked to said that they could have brought a tire that was a second to almost 2 seconds quicker and still think they'd be in fine shape as far as wear and consistency. But it's surprising to me that both Goodyear and Firestone were so conservative that one of them didn't stick their neck out just a little bit. Remember, in the past, they could have brought 2 different types of tires. All the teams would have elected to have chosen, obviously, the softer one. But now that they only get 1 tire, everybody's in the same boat. And just by sheer numbers, Firestone has just overwhelmed Goodyear. And poor Gilles de Ferran is really the only one there in a competitive situation, and he's down in 17th place currently.
Oh, is Franchitti going to do it? He comes across the line. 2nd quick. Mark Blundell still has the pole.
Kid. Currently P2 next to Marcus. Great job.
And because those compounds are hard, most of the drivers, they went and they talked to Chief Stewart Wally Dallenbach and said, look, we're going to need some extra warm-up laps. They offered them 5, and most of them have taken those 5. Let's go back to Gary Gerald.
Cristiano D'Amata, the Toyota for you has been really strong every time you've been on the track this weekend. Were you able to get all you wanted out of the qualifying run?
Yeah, unfortunately, Gary, we didn't have such a good qualifying run. We were afraid to be aggressive on the front grip for qualify. I had way too much push. But I know that I have a good car for the race, and it's a long race, so tomorrow is lockdowns.
All right, we'll watch you. Thanks.
And coming up, the 2 fastest in the practice, Jimmy Vasser and Max Pappas. Will they take the pole away from Mark Blundell? You ride with Jimmy Vasser, the Kart FedEx Championship Series, qualifying for the Target Grand Prix of Chicago at Chicago Motor Speedway. So while Jimmy warms up here, Helio Castroneves is currently 3rd quick. He could get pushed back 2 more positions if both Vasser and Max Pappas are successful. Let's go to Rick DeBrule.
Well, I just asked Helio, you're happy or unhappy? He said, well, satisfied. Satisfied is the best way to describe this?
Yes, I mean, I'm happy, of course, for the Hogan Racing. I mean, we've been very, very fortunate in the Tour last race, finished 7th place. And, of course, now we just, at the moment, it's to go fast and try to be in the race very, very well.
All right, let's talk about, can you race on this track? What's it going to be like during the race?
It's going to be very exciting, I'm telling you. It's tighter, but it's wide. Oh, guys, don't miss this show because it's going to be amazing.
There you go, the best promo for the race.
Mark Blundell, who was the 20th quick in the practice, is still tenaciously holding on to the pole as Jimmy Vasser begins his run.
Keep in mind that'd be a great victory for Mark Blundell. He was disqualified last week over a very, very small technical infraction, which dropped him out of 3rd place. He had to start dead last. Jimmy Vasser, keep in mind, going much slower than I would have anticipated, Paul, would have won Milwaukee with slightly different pit strategies. So he certainly is at the top of the list of one of the guys with experience that's got the right equipment, the right engineering staff, and he knows what the car needs to feel like in order not only to qualify well, but also to be at the front of this thing when the checker flag comes out. Can he carry that speed off the exit?
And there's Jimmy Vasser up to the outside of the front row, but Mark Blundell is still hanging on to that pole. This track, though, a constantly changing surface. Let's go to Gary Gerould again.
Well, Dario Franchitti, you sweat out these last couple of guys out here. Looks like you've just been bumped into the 2nd row. Is that real bad news?
Not really. I mean, the first row's always nice, but now we'll take the 2nd row, to be honest. It's where we started out the weekend on Thursday, we're like 25th quickest or something. I think we've done a great job at Team Co Green getting the car to where we want it. We think we've got a pretty good race car. You know, I could have done a couple of things in qualifying, maybe with the balance. I was a bit too much push, but, you know, it's a long race.
Have you found a comfort zone on a new racetrack yet?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a great track. I think it's a great facility. I just think we need a little bit more running to get some more rubber on the track, and it'll be a great race.
Look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's what I was referring to when I suggested it's a constantly changing surface. Remember, it saw race cars for the first time just 2 days ago, and they said it was a very green racetrack. Here's the fastest in the practice, Max Pappas. Hear him pop those gears.
You know, it was interesting watching Vasser's run is the difference in the driving style where he carried speed into the corner, was the quickest, but he lost a little through the mid-corner on the exit, dropped him back to 2nd place. Now, as we watch Max Pappas, he's running his left side wheels as low on the white line as anybody I've seen. We saw that same bobble coming out of turn 2 that we saw with Greg Moore. The same thing with Roberto Moreno. Mark Blundell said he had the same problem there. So Max not using all of the exit out to the wall, but he's certainly using all of the track down on the inside.
Max Pappas, the only man who theoretically can take the pole away from Mark Blundell, starts his runs looking good off the first corner, but then he loses speed coming through 2.
And you could see the wiggle down on the paint, Paul, right in the middle of the corner. That's exactly what I was talking about. You got especially the rear tire all the way down on that paint. The car started to step around. He had good entry speed, but he had to lift out of the throttle longer, and he lost the speed coming off the corner.
2nd quick at the end of the first lap. Again, loses speed coming onto the backstretch. Blundell is still safe. 1/2 a lap to go.
You can see the corner entry's quick. It's the exit, though, that really counts.
And Max Pappas has completed the run, and in doing so, he takes the pole away from Mark Blundell. So Max Pappas now has the pole, and one that he'd been looking for a very long time. As he said, his first real pole.
That's right. He had the provisional pole in the rain in Detroit last year, but this is the one that counts. This is the one that goes into the record books. I'm sure a great celebration down in the Bobby Rahal team area. You can see the smile on the engineer's face. That's Tim Cedric. They've had so many disappointments, and now finally they've got a little taste of success.
Well, it was a long wait and a disappointing wait eventually for Mark Blundell, Gary.
Well, we were down here with the crew, and they were just banging their fists in frustration, and you've got that look like, it was so close. What are you feeling?
I feel a little bit, I mean, I'm still 2nd, which is great, but I feel a little bit frustrated that I didn't pull it off. I mean, it would have been great for the team, for Motorola, for everybody. I mean, we really deserve to get that front slot there, but, you know, it's just these little fragments. 60 thousandths of an inch last weekend, and I was out from 3rd place, and just a few tenths of a second or thousandths of a second, I'm out of the 1st place slot. But you know, there's tomorrow. It's a long race, and I think we're going to make it. We'll be good.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
So Bobby Rahal and his partner David Letterman have a pole, the first for Max Papis. Congratulations to Max. We'll be back and talk with our new pole sitter right after this. It's special when you earn your first pole. It's extra special when it's the first pole ever at a brand new speedway. That honor now belongs to Max Papis.
As we look down, great runs for Max Papis and some other guys that, you know, you look at Blundell coming back from the disappointment of last weekend. Jimmy Vasser, a great run. Dario Franchitti and Elio Castroneves, the top 5. I think we're going to have a great race tomorrow. All the different engine manufacturers represented. Renard, Lola, should be great.
A lot of action in the Chicago area, an air show out over the lake as well. But right now the focus is on Max Papis and Gary Gerould.
Max, there are 6 drivers within a 10th. Did you know that you were just going to have to squeeze everything out of that race car?
You know that, you know, when you are on a track like this, you know, you really want to take the best out of your car, and today what happened with the Miller car. We've been very consistent all weekend, and I'm very, very glad for the race car. We're going to go even faster tomorrow.
Do you feel like something's owed to you after the disappointment of the last oval race at Michigan when on the last lap the world fell apart for you?
Man, I don't think we don't own anything. You know, we just go out and get it every day, and that's what we are. You know, I'm very, very glad for the Miller crew. We've been pushing very, very hard every race, and I tell you know, here we are.
What is it going to be like under race conditions in traffic in those tight corners tomorrow?
Well, I'm glad. The most things I'm glad is because the car is even better in the race configuration than what is in qualifying. So that's what it counts.
Great job.
Thank you. Ciao.
Max Papis has the pole. There's going to be a lot of work being done on these cars overnight. We'll have all of the changes for you on CART today, and then the race itself on ABC Sports. That's Paul Page for Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerould, and Rick DeBrule. Winston Cup Happy Hour is next. So long from Chicago as we invite you to celebrate another moment in ESPN history.